Welcome to Hop on the Mic. I'm here with my two co-hosts, Christian and Kilmer. Today we're going to be having a discussion about child development. Let's just get straight into it. I think the most important part of it would be education. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, you spend most of your time with your parents and your teachers, classmates, so that is a huge impact in your childhood.
And especially you spend honestly a lot of time, especially when you're developing at school and with friends and with your teachers. So education does play a big role in what shapes you as an individual.
Yeah, I agree. And plus, I mean, like, everything that you do in school kind of dictates what you do later in life. Especially, let's say you grow up, not really understanding a certain subject like math or English, and then you grow up struggling. It's going to affect your life in the sense of
The long-term
working.
effect.
Yeah, like if you're having difficulties reading, like 20 years down the line, if you still have those difficulties, it's going to be harder for you in life.
And not only that, I mean, at this stage of your development, people that you have around yourself, the people that you surround yourself, is what pretty much defines who you are. Because most of the time, the decisions that your friends make are the decisions that you will also make. Let's say, for example, if you have friends that are doing drugs or certain activities in that matter, you most likely can end up doing the same. Because at that age, you kind of, I wouldn't say you don't know what you want, but at the same time, you're pretty much controlled by the influences in your life.
And you can obviously not fall under the influence of peer pressure and all that, but at the same time, just little things can also snowball effect into leading you through that path in the end.
Yeah, definitely. And especially since children are just so impressionable,
They're influenced so easily.
Yes, influenced very easily, especially by pop culture. A lot of what they see on TV and the news, on the internet. Something I've been reading a lot about is how a lot of high schoolers and middle schoolers are vaping now in schools, just because it's something that they're surrounded by, and so many people are doing that. It becomes such a, like Christian said, a snowball effect where everyone just starts picking up on it.
And it's now with social media, how things can be picked up so easily, so many of those ridiculous challenges that could affect students physically, and the Tide Pod challenge and all that.
Yeah, definitely.
So at this stage, it's pretty popular, at least in my opinion. I feel like we kind of just focus on the trendings that are going on. See, in my case, when I came here to the United States, I grew up listening to rappers like Wiz Khalifa, which promotes a lot of, smoking weed and stuff like that. At that age, I thought that was cool, but, now that, have, developed and I'm a little grown, I know that lifestyle is not something that would fit me, so.
Another thing I wanted to talk about was kind of more of the parental roles. I think that a lot of kids who have a single parent or divorced parents or are taken in by foster care, they struggle a lot with kind of understanding that parents need help. A single mother with two jobs and two kids isn't going to have the same effect that two parents where one can stay home and take care of the child is going to have. It's an unfair advantage, definitely, but it's something that I think more people should look at.
Right, because in my case, like I said, going back to the drugs topic, I feel like my parents, maybe they didn't support me as much in the educational role, but they did an outstanding job at parenting. I mean, like I said, I always had friends around myself that were doing drugs and this and that. But like I said, I was receiving a good, cultural education at home, which prevented me from falling into that situation as well.
Yeah, a lot of the times, what your parents live through, they don't want you to live through that. So, my parents in particular, my dad, I don't think even finished middle school, and my mom went to college, but I think did not finish it or get even an associate's degree. So, now that they've lived through that failure type thing, situation, they don't want me to go through that same thing.
Yeah, honestly.
Right. My parents share a similar situation, similar story to that. The perspective, or what my father always says, is that I have already lived my life. The decisions that you make is only going to affect you and not us. Even though that they do care, and that is absolutely 100% true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, especially a lot of the situations where children fall into being even more impacted or heavily bigger risks of influence are in like lower income areas, such as like if you live in the projects or if you live in Section 8 housing and you go to the school where a lot of the same students go, and it's kind of just taught by the older generation where like being in gangs is cool and shooting people is cool and drugs are everywhere, and it's something that it's very hard to escape for a lot of children. And I mean, it's obviously beyond their perspective and beliefs to avoid because it's where they grew up. But I think that that has a huge impact on just shaping this area of, especially in America, where kids are subjected to being around drugs, guns, and things like that. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to be in an area where that wasn't very heard of. I mean, there was some gangs and stuff, like activity, but it wasn't anything serious to where I was like affected.
Right. I come from a place where, you know, as you mentioned, that gangs and violence activity is very popular. In Salvador, most of the kids, they fall into that life at the age of 13, and mostly it's because of the people that they have surrounded or they are surrounded by. Over there, it's a lot more clinical, though. Over there, they pretty much force you to. Luckily, I was able to, you know, escape from that at a young age, but it's pretty hard, you know, because at that age, you know, if they traumatize you or they tell you something like, you know, if you don't join us, well, jump you, or you know, take away the life of your family members, it's pretty hard to live with that.
And honestly, kind of going away from this topic a little bit, how Josh said a little bit earlier, how parents like might impact on like the students or like the child's situation, like divorced parents or all that. It's since they struggle a little bit more with money, they might live in like less in areas with poverty, and they might not get the best education. They might be more exposed to gangs, to violence, and all that stuff. So that also plays a big role on like child development and how it impacts them like psychologically.
Yeah, definitely. And whenever kids suffers like psychological trauma and stuff, it like I said earlier, it really affects their future. A lot of people who end up in prison by the age of like 18 usually just isn't because they're a bad kid or because they felt like growing up to be an awful person. It's because they grew up in an area where that was their only means of survival. It's their only means of, it's the only life they know. But yeah, luckily, I'd say we were fortunate enough to not have to deal with that now, but I still think that there's large areas that need improvement, especially from our local governments, from our just everyday people who go out and support these lower income areas to help students in need and to help families who are struggling.
Right. It does reflect everywhere, you know, your education. If you're having problems at home, that's most likely going to reflect in your grades at school as well. And, you know, going back to the immigration topic, which was our topic for our previous episode, you know, imagine this students who come from an immigration background going to school and suffering through the same problems. You know, all these obstacles that they have to overcome kind of leads them into an idea and thinking that education might not even be that important, you know, because they have to focus in so many other things other than school. And in comparison to the kids that are born here, you know, they only have to focus in going to school and not only their education, but, you know, as an immigrant, when I came here, I had to, you know, go to school and at the same time work, which is not hard. You know, when you work about 30 hours a week, you know, you're giving up 30 hours that you could be studying.
All right. I think that's a really good note to end on. Thank you for listening to Hop on the Mic. We're going to sign out now. I'm Josh.
I'm Christian.
And Coleman.
And thanks for listening.